All right. Greetings, and welcome back to the latest edition of New Day Resurrection and Liberation. I'll be your moderator and co-host for this evening, Brother Muba Uncaged. Happy to be here, and looking forward to another great show. A lot of insight, good information. All right. All right, family. With that being said, of course, I have my illustrious host for this evening and the founder and architect of the phenomenal Million Woman March and Now Universal Movements, none other than Dr. Filet Chilnace, also known as Empress Chi.
All right, all right. Greetings, Brother Lumumba. Greetings, New Day family. Welcome to the last New Day episode for the month of May. Wow, can you believe that we are almost half into the year of 2026? Time
Man,
is really moving. Yeah.
gone like a flash.
Yep, for real. Anyway, family, tonight we're going to do a couple of things. Today was a very, very uplifting and inspirational day, particularly as it pertains to being able to watch the memorial service, the honoring of Sister Asada Shakur. It took place today in New York at the Riverside Church, which is a very, very most people will remember Dr. King spoke there, but there's a lot of different activities and things that happen at that particular church. And so today, the memorial service for Sister Asada Shakur took place, and people from all over the country came. I'm hoping that either Sister Pam Africa and or Chairman Fred Hampton will be calling in to just kind of give their feelings about today. They were both there. Unfortunately, I was not able to go up, but we were able to watch it. And we know that some of you didn't know that you could have watched it on YouTube. So we're going to share a little bit of that with you. And of course, you'll be able to go and check it out for yourself, the full kind of presentation. We're just going to give you some excerpts, some little clips of some of the things that we felt were very significant. I mean, it was all powerful, but there were some things that were just, oh my gosh, unbelievable. There's a sister, you talk about sang, that sister could sing. I mean,
Oh, yeah. Moo Fresh. Yeah.
yes, indeed. Woo wee, that was my first time hearing her. And,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm
you
familiar with
know,
the
she,
new school. Yeah.
yes, indeed. That's what I'm talking about. When you hear that kind of capability with a voice, oh my! It just gives you so much hope for real. Because this stuff we're hearing today is just like, oh wow! But that sister. So hopefully we can just play at least a little bit of her because she was incredible. She has the kind of voice that just makes you stop whatever you're doing and listen.
Mhm.
Oh, incredible, incredible. So we're going to share a little bit of that with you tonight, family. But before we do, let me just give you some little insight into, what else is going on. And it's funny because I called Chairman Fred earlier. He literally picked up the phone while he was sitting in there. So
Mhm.
it was funny, but that's how my brother do. So I'm always thankful. At any rate, the other thing that we're going to talk about tonight, I'm sure most of you have heard that the Pope has, in fact, said something about reparations. Oh, no, well, enslavement, actually. Well, it's interesting for me because it just helps me to know that I'm on point. We're on point. Because if you look at some of what we sent out a few weeks ago, we talked about getting ready to sit with some of the church officials to talk about their involvement in the transatlantic slave trade. And lo and behold, the Pope makes a statement. I'm like, okay, we definitely know that we are on point. So we're going to go into that a little bit tonight because we're not only looking to meet with Catholic Church officials. Our position is we want to meet with the various kinds of groups, entities that were involved, and we do have some insight into what some of these people, who they were, the group that is. And again, when as we begin to develop the next phases of We Trust Genocide 21, National Black Human Rights Project, that's one of the things, or several of the things that we're now really going to be pushing forward, because we want to make certain that it's not just as government for us; it is people, insurance companies, as Sister Deidre Parliament from Parliament showed us, and others that were involved. And we need to make sure that, if nothing else for the future, that the next generations know specifically who these people were that were directly involved in the enslavement and the brutality of our people. So, again, we'll give you more information about that as we proceed. And the other thing we're going to talk about is working on something for Philly. And years ago, there was something called model cities. And it kind of came out of the rebellions that were taking place nationwide. And, folks was tearing up some stuff. And so in looking at that, this government supposedly, felt that some changes needed to be made in terms of providing, greater capabilities in our communities and so forth and so on. We're going to go more into the report that came out of, I believe it was the Lyndon Johnson administration, that focused specifically on the redevelopment of our communities. Well, we're not looking to do that, but what we are looking to do as a part of repair is to establish our own neighborhoods slash communities slash villages, etc. And we're looking at them in the context of several block radius. Now, in most cities, particularly your major cities, particularly in the urban areas, but now even some of the southern areas, you literally have locations where other groups of peoples have their, everything, bank, commercial areas, manufacturing, etc. Here in Philadelphia, there is Chinatown, as there is in DC and in New York and other cities. Of course, Chicago got Greek Town and Chinatown. And most major cities have very distinct corridors and other kinds of areas where specific groups of peoples are known to have their businesses, as well as a large amount of restaurants, a large amount of clothing facility, capabilities, and so forth. Anyway, we know that we had those kinds of things, but for whatever reason, they disappeared. Well, as a part of repair, we're looking at how to now bring those things forward. So we're going to use Philly as a model, right? And so I'm calling it New Black Philly. Now, again, this is a nationwide projection where each city that we create these concepts, and we have at least what we call 10 sister cities. We had 7, now we have 10 to start with. And so each city would have its own specific project, right, based on the dynamics of that city. So for Philly, we're looking at New Black Philly. And with that, have a commercial corridor, have, of course, at least a 3-block radius that has our businesses, school, and other kinds of capabilities to engage in such a way that we build and establish our own everything. And again, this is the first phase of repair. So we're going to tell you a little more about that as we proceed. Philadelphia has now put up like $2 billion, I think, for new housing. And so we feel it behooves us to make certain that we have something in that mix that represents our repair. Okay, so we'll talk a little more about that, and then some of the other cities that we're looking to bring, either something that is relevant to an independent village, something of that nature. Baltimore, for example, D.C. are two of the locations, Atlanta, and so forth. There needs to be, at least to some degree, a beginning of showing that we can and must be repaired, and here's how that can happen. So we're starting here in Philly, and again, it's called New Black Philly. And I'll break down to you a little later on, give you some insight into what some of that consists of. Okay, anyway, that's another topic for tonight. Another topic that we're going to talk about, of course, is Ubuntu. And of course, the next meeting for that is tomorrow, and we'll give you a little more insight into what's getting ready to happen with that. And also, along with the meeting, We Trust Inside 21 focus of meeting with Black clergy as well. So not just the Catholic Church per se, but Black clergy, period. And we also want to know what Black clergy is for. Repair is for reparations, because with the We Charge Genocide 21, we want to have our own cadre of so-called, folks of the cloth that are for reparations on a national level, so that when we're ready to discuss certain things, we already have a built-in group that is specifically in that particular arena. So there is a virtual meeting going to be planned soon for a national conversation with Black clergy who are for repair. We want to hear what plans they may have, or what plans they're open for, and so forth. So we'll give you a little more insight into that. And also, we're putting the call out for Black elected officials nationwide, again, that are for repair. And again, so we can hear what's your plan, or what are you projecting, or what's your report, or what have you. This is organizing, really. This is something that needs to be done, must, and is now going to be done. So again, rather than to try to guess or figure out certain things, we'll be very specific in terms of, do you support reparations? And if so, what are you supporting, you see? Or what is your plan, or things of that nature. So those sessions are coming. When we talk about Poli-Sci 101, it's not just the conversation about how the political structure works, what can we do within it, things of that nature. It's all across the board. Poli-Sci, Black Poli-Sci, that is 101. Okay, the other thing that we're going to talk about, and then we're going to get ready to go to the clip, or the information, the presentations that opened up today's Sister Sada's memorial, and the honoring of her legacy, of her work, of her spirit. I tell you, the opening just set the tone. I'm used to a certain kind of interaction. And when I saw this today, it reminded me how we're not seeing much of this like we used to. This used to be like a norm. Now it's kind of here and there. And so when you see the opening of today's program, please know that some of us used to see this like every week or so, meaning the drumming, the artistry, those kinds of things. This was going on all the time, or very regular, and not just in Philly, but in other cities too. But now, this stuff that we're hearing now is so diluted, is so weak, if at all. So again, when you hear the opening, when we go to Sister Sada's memorial service, again, this is what some of us were really raised on, introduced to, learned, participated in, and so forth. And again, we're talking about the drumming, the calling of the ancestors, the calling of the various deities, the elements of divinity and things of that nature. It was an excellent, excellent demonstration and engagement of that. Okay, so lastly, the other thing we're going to talk about, or we're going to show you a little later on, is some of you may have seen it, but I'm sure most have not. And it is a clip from a 1969 program interview that took place. And it's almost like yesterday, but it just goes to show you how long and how much folks have talked about reparations. 1969. And when you hear the topic, it's like, wow. I mean, it's like today. And so when I hear people talk about reparations and things of that nature, I wonder sometimes, how much do they really know? How much have they really studied? How much time and effort have they really put into doing the work? Because to be where we're at today took a lot. And, good, bad, or indifferent, whether people agree with what has been accomplished or not, the fact still remains. If folks didn't do what they did, we would not be having these conversations today. That is for sure. Anyway, that gives you some insight into what we're going to talk about tonight. And if Brother Lumumba is ready, we are going to share with you the first part of today's memorial service honoring and remembering Sister Asada Shakur.
And I got two words additions for that, what you were describing. Um, Matter of fact, it's three: authentic, tradition, and culture.
Mm, all right.
All right, so that's what we want to get a glimpse of today, family. Let's go ahead and share the clip.
And again, keep in mind, family, that if you want to see the entire presentation or the entire program, you can. It's already on YouTube. I checked. And I'm telling you, it's definitely worth watching. It's about 2.5 hours, but I tell you, it's filled with wonderful, wonderful things. A couple of things you can kind of go past because I did. So, but the majority of the things were just wonderful.
All right, sharing screen. And again, family, I'm going to work to put the link in our chat and in the comments. All right, so I'm gonna put that on YouTube, on our YouTube live page, as well as the Facebook. So should be able to just tap on the link and tap in. All right, again, this is carrying on, celebrating the life, legacy, and work of our ancestor, Saint Asada Shakur.
Can you fast forward?
It should be playing any second.
Okay.
Let me pause it real quick though. I don't know if you noticed, but there was actually a hush in the room before the drummer started playing. And I don't know if that
Yeah.
was intentional that was playing or that was just the energy, but
Right.
that's how I knew that the music was about to start playing. Now that's why I paused it there because
Right.
a few seconds there was like a hush that went across the audience.
Yes. Yes. kind of low.
Might be just the volume.
Yeah, I'm not hearing it.
Let me. I hear it on mine.
Yeah, well, on my end, it's very, very low.
It might. Yeah, that might be. I'm trying to adjust it on my end. What about now?
No.
So yeah, that might be just the volume that they recorded it on.
Oh, wow.
But when I turned the sound up on my device, it did, turn up. So, if you could turn the sound up on your device.
Yeah, it's very glitchy.
Hmm.
Yeah, it sounds like almost like an echo or like it's in a chamber or something. It's not clear. Yeah, that was not good. um,
No, oh, that's what I was saying. Baba Moses in the building. Thank you for joining us. Just want to get a sound check on your end. What does the sound quality sound like? Could you hear the?
Yeah, I could hear probably what you were hearing because if according to what your voices and said were saying, um, it sounded low, but I could hear it.
Okay, okay. Does it help any if you turn the volume on your device? If you turn it up?
Oh, I don't know anything about that. You
Okay.
draw my pay for my pay grade now.
All right, all right. Um, so I don't know. I don't know if you can get another opinion on that. So you want me to continue or you want me to cut the video?
yeah, let's try a little more.
Okay.
Oh, that is better.
It must have been your video then.
Good evening. Beloved community, welcome to the Riverside Church in the city of New York. I'm Adrienne Thorne, the senior minister of this historic and history-making congregation. Thank you. I greet you in the spirit of justice, liberation, and unapologetic love for Black life. Yes. Yes. Riverside Church has long stood at the crossroads of faith and freedom, where Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. stood right here on this very labyrinth to deliver his Beyond Vietnam speech 59 years ago this past April 4th. He lifted his voice against war and for the dignity of all people. Riverside is where movements for civil rights, and human flourishing have found sanctuary. It is in that same lineage of moral courage that we gather this evening. This evening, we honor and celebrate the life and memory of Assata Shakur, an iconic figure whose name has become synonymous with resistance, Black womanhood, and the unyielding pursuit of liberation and love. We recognize, yes, yes. We recognize her as a daughter of the struggle, a voice that refused to be quieted, and a symbol of the ongoing fight for freedom across generations. It is our deep honor and delight to host her homegoing service here at Riverside. May this sacred space hold her story with tenderness, her legacy with reverence, and her people with love. To all who have traveled far, to all who carry memories and movement work in your bones, to all who come seeking healing, solidarity, or simply a place to exhale, you are welcome here. May this gathering be a testament to the truth Assata taught us, that the struggle continues, but so does the hope and the love. May her memory and this evening be a blessing. Amen and Ashe.
It's now time for us to pay homage to our ancestors. Ashe. We ask, and you could either stand, stay seated, whatever's a position of reverence for you. Ashe. Name of the Creator Most High. And all of our ancestors who sit at the feet of the Creator in the lifetime which is to come. Ashe. We salute all of our ancestors who died during the Middle Passage in the lifetime which is to come. Ashe. We salute all of our ancestors who resisted on the coast of Africa. Ashe. Who resisted on the boats. Ashe. And who fought in the Americas. Ashe. We salute all of our ancestors whose names we don't remember. Ashe. Oh, ancestors, blacker than the skies at midnight and brighter than the noonday sun, and all the beautiful shades of Africa in between. Field slaves, house workers, domestic workers, factory workers, farmers, freedom fighters, those who chose to survive. We particularly salute the ancestors of Queen Mother Assata Shakur. We salute her mother, Doris Johnson, Ashe. We salute her aunt, Evelyn Williams, Ashe. We salute her grandparents, Frank and Lulu Hill, Ashe. We salute the comrades of Sister Assata Shakur from the Black Panther Party, Black Liberation Army, New African Freedom Fighters, particularly those who are no longer with us, who got her out of captivity. Ashe. Free them all. Free them all. Free them all. In that light, when I was a young man, I wasn't introduced libations from the movement people. It was brothers and sisters on the street. And they said, for the brothers and sisters who ain't here. So for all of those who are still in captivity, for all of those who are in exile, we want to say, free them all. Free them all. Free them all. Ashe. 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 Oh. Thank you, brother.
Bobo marigo tuwo, eseruba, bing bing, eru, pepeye. Bobo marigo tuwo, eseruba, bing bing, eru, pepeye. When the spirit of the ancestors dances with the spirit of change, the change maker of the wind, the blessing is for all of us. Iworio yeku, ogbodo na babalawo. Babaláwo náà kò gbọdọ̀ ṣàkìjọkìjọ fún ẹ̀gùn, àdífá fún ẹ̀gùn, àbú fún ọ̀yà. Àwọn méjèèjì wọ́n lọ sí ojú ọdẹ lóríjọ, ẹbọ wọn ní kó wá ṣe kẹ̀kẹ́ kejìnà. Ó wíndí wíndí, ilé gbogbo wa jẹ́dẹ̀ tútúrú, ó wíndí wíndí.
Mariwo, 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 tu yeri yeri, Mariwo, tu yeri yeri, Mariwo ya wahora, Mariwo ya wahora, Mariwo, Mariwo, Mariwo tu yeri yeri, Mariwo tu yeri yeri, Mariwo ya wahora, Mariwo ya wahora. Segele bo aboti sawo, segele boti sawo, boti sawo, boti sawo. Motisao, 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 Motisao. I say wama, 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 I say wama. Say wama, alagba, 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 Say you are man. 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 Alagba. 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 Fere Timon Fere. 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 Baga. 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 Baga.
Akekesele so wile so odo so yanu ibu akekeke oya yegwe oya mero oya modele ewe onukonu so waye opinisa oya mi lode o sinkreta kun foya la meta oduru maloye o akara irawo eke ayama emile o ayama emile o oya uro imalo kere nyale tagwa 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 oya uro imalo kere nyale tagwa
Good afternoon, family. Greetings. That was a little lukewarm. Let me try that again. Okay, y'all still in my thunder. Hold on. All right, let's do it. Free to land. Free to land. Free to land. By any means necessary. We're gonna do another quick call and response. See who all is in the room, y'all. Y'all ready? I'ma say, what am I gonna say? Assalamu alaikum.
Well, remember, we could stop it here.
Amanla. Okay, I'm just trying to see who's in here. I'm gonna say, Gawo.
Brother Lumumba.
Okay, I got 3. Okay, so I'm a priest of Shango, Gawo, Kabi, and Sile, so I had to do that.
Yep, I got you.
Okay, and then this is the last one I need y'all to pay attention to. Y'all ready? Look around and see how people respond. I'm gonna say, God is good. And all the time. There we go. Okay. We black. We extra black up in here and pro-black. I love it.
Okay, family. So that kind of gives you a general idea. If you go to YouTube, because for me, the quality broadcasting it this way is not anywhere near what it is when you actually go to the YouTube channel. It's very clear, it's very crisp, and I suggest that you might want to do that. But you get a general idea of what the spirit was today. I mean, it was just incredible. There's a couple other little pieces that we want to share with you, but before we do that, we want to just kind of go into what some of your thoughts might be, just in what you saw and heard thus far.
So we just had Baba Moses that's in the yard currently.
Okay.
Shout out to Sister J Renee in our YouTube live, and shout out also to Robert Pollinator.
All right.
What's happening? Thanks for joining us on our our YouTube live. All right. So if you got anything you want to put in the comments, I'll put that in there. Let me come to Baba Moses. Did you get to see this presentation? And from what you saw briefly, if you didn't see the whole presentation, what was your thoughts, opinions, Baba Moses?
I enjoyed what I saw. I just certainly a tribute to the spirit of our ancestors and to Black people in general. I do know where my volume is. I'm sorry. Now I know what my volume is. Thank you.
No problem. All right, excellent, excellent. Yeah, that was again, that was a tribute today that was in celebration of the life and legacy and work of our ancestor Saint Asada Shakur. So that was just kind of the opening ceremonies for the program that was scheduled for this evening. All right, and again, that is available live on YouTube, and I'm working to put that in the chat. All right. All right. All right. Got the heart from Sister J Renee.
Yeah, and big ups to Common. He really came through today.
He did. He did. He brought it. He
Yeah.
brought it. It was a dope collab too with him. Shout out to Sweet Honey in the Rock. And
Yeah.
shout out to Mumu Fresh. I mean, she was super dope though. I mean,
Oh,
everybody was dope, but it was a
yes.
little extra energy for Sister Mumu Fresh.
Yes, yes, yes. Oh my
We'll
gosh.
say that a little bit later though. Their closing performance, that collaboration, that was excellent. That was excellent.
Yeah. Yep, no doubt. For those that do not know, Brother Common had written a song for and about Sister Asada a couple of years ago, and he kind of went into detail about meeting her and how she inspired him and so forth. I'm going to give folks a little sidebar because this is not something that's talked about often. It just goes to show you how folks have just disregarded Million Woman March, but I'm going to make sure that the history now is known, appreciated, and embraced. Because in 1997, we knew that the government was, of course, heightening their attack on Sister Asada. And I made a request, and the request was granted. And unfortunately, we didn't have the capability to do live streaming at the time, which really could not have happened anyway, because it just wasn't the thing to do based on the tracking and intelligence and things of that nature. But what Sister Asada did do was she wrote something for us and sent it. And it was read at the Million Woman March, both in English and in Spanish. It came directly from her. And I just find it so interesting that very few people mention that or, even indicate that. We're the only Black women's organization, group, entity in the world that did that. to make certain that her message was in fact made available to millions live, in terms of having it read in English and in Spanish. There was an estimated 2.5 million people that heard it physically, and another 5 to 7 million heard it by way of, it was aired on C-SPAN. So, that's a very historical thing. And we made certain that people were aware of the bounty that the FBI was placing on her head at that time. But yet, we're not given any kind of credit or recognition about our contribution to making certain that generation of that time and others, even the older ones, could hear her message to us. So I just want to do that little sidebar because I think it's really important as we proceed in the future that we do the right things, and that means to make certain that information is in fact made available, as it said, by any and all means. That was something that really touched the spirit and the hearts, particularly of young folks. There were young sisters who knew nothing about Sister Assata at that time, so they got their first, introduction at the Million Woman March. So next year, we're going to reintroduce it. We're going to make available the message that she sent in writing as a part of our 30-year anniversary. So just a little sidebar for you on that. Okay, before we go back to today's memorial service, I want to go to one of the topics that we wanted to bring to your attention tonight and get your opinion, first of all, before we bring in the clip. I'm sure most have heard, if not everyone, that the Pope made a very interesting statement about slavery, the transatlantic slave trade, and indicated that there needs to be something done about it. Now, as quiet as it's kept, that's really not the first time that happened. And we'll go more into that, I guess, on Ethereal coming up. We're going to be talking more about that. Is that correct, Brother Lumumba? Is that one of our topics coming up for Tuesday?
You said, what's the topic coming up for Tuesday?
The Pope's message.
We covered that already.
Okay, but okay. So, all right. Then maybe because what I know we didn't cover is the fact that there have been other popes that spoke out against it.
Yeah, and we didn't go into
okay, right. Gotcha. Yeah. Okay, right. That's why I didn't remember it. Okay, so again, family, and again, we'll wait and do that at another time. But it's so important that we get fuller history. Now, it is important that this particular Pope did say something at this particular time. That's very important for a lot of other reasons, probably. But again, to give you a fuller picture, there were at least 3 other popes, I believe, that did speak out against enslavement. Okay, and so we'll do another session that goes more in depth on that. But again, it is important that in contemporary times, because those times were like, 1600s and things like that. And there was one that was a little more recent. But again, this is important because of what's going on in the world now today. Right. So with that said, a few weeks ago, prior to the Pope making the statement, for those of you who get some of our email information pieces on We Charge Genocide, you would have seen that one of the things that we talked about several weeks ago was preparing to talk with the churches, some of the churches, about their participation in enslavement. Because we already knew. And so just like there were other companies that were involved. So we knew that there were institutions involved along with the government and also companies, right? So our plan is not just this government. Of course, that's a major piece, but certainly we're not letting these other folks off the hook either. So it was always our intention to connect with the churches, to discuss with them what they're talking about doing as a part of repair. And so now here we are with the Pope. And so it is our intention to see if we can speak with a representative in that regard. Now, speaking of Sister Sada, and I'm not sure if I can pull it up in time. I should have thought about it earlier. But Sister Asada wrote a letter to the Pope years ago. So this is not something new. And it wasn't necessarily regarding reparations, but again, I'm going to try to pull that up for you. But yes, she wrote a letter to the Pope, and it was made public as well. Okay, but before we go back into that, I want to share with you something from 1969 to show you how important what's going on today is just so. I'm not going to say on time, but certainly it's due, needless to say, because again, in 1969, a group of clergy folk came together. I think it was from 5 different religious groups or arenas. They came together to talk about the issue of reparations, Black reparations. When we talk about 1969, y'all. So when I hear people again talk about reparations today, I'm like, dude, don't you know some? I mean, this is not new. And just because it was not able to be advanced to the degree that it was, if you don't connect to the history and the struggles that it took to get us to this point, then to me it's an injustice. And some of us are not allowing it. Trust me. You're not going to take away the hard work that folks did, at least some. Not having it. So, Brother Lumumba, can we share the clip with Father Paul Washington? And by the way, they did mention, as Sister Asada's memorial, they mentioned Max Stanford. And as you're going to see him in this clip. Right. He was then called Max Stanford, but of course, as he evolved into the movement, he later became Dr. Muhammad Ahmed. He is in this particular clip as a young man, but it just shows you what our young folks were doing, the kinds of things years ago. Check this out, y'all. This is 1969.
Gather, and I'd like to ask you, Muhammad, that kind of evasion of the obvious facts of
But what we found out, subsequently was a couple of things. One, that the guy on the other side of the table was not a gentleman. And second, that he didn't regard us as any man at all. So now clearly we have to be about the business of finding more effective methods to raise the questions and to get the questions properly answered.
What would you do, Muhammad, in terms of for the benefit of white churches, kind of thing that you've been doing all along, daily, almost? How would you state the case for reparations? And
there are a couple of things and a couple of ways to look at the whole question of reparations. One is clearly in terms of the politics and the economics of the thing, where we can look at the whole development of the great corporate capitalism in America, the whole industrial revolution, the whole super technological society that we have now, and see that the capital that was accumulated for that process, for that development, largely came through slavery, that America would not be the wealthy country it is today if it were not for the resources of black people, the free labor of black people. And that since slavery, the process has continued, and that second-class citizenship, job discrimination, that these are just manifestations of kind of an updated slavery, a new style slavery to meet new economic and social conditions. Looking at that, we see a whole case for the sense of debt, the idea of debt. Moreover, we can look at historical and political precedents. What happened in Germany and what happened subsequent to the fall of Nazi Germany was that the case for reparations was made for the Jews on two bases. One being the economic base, that is, the fascist government had expropriated land holdings of individual Jews, property holdings of individual Jews, but that it was a collective act aimed at Jewish people as a whole. The moral part of the argument, although it was never stated in the legal case, the real moral force behind the argument for Jewish reparations was the fact that the Germans had indeed, practiced such barbarity against the Jews. The 6 million in the ovens, was a case that nobody could ignore. The parallels for black people are, of course, the stolen labor, the free labor. In fact, the stolen people, literally physically stolen from one place and transported to another. And of course, the series of barbarities, practiced against our people have meant for us that we have always lived in a fascist nation. We have not experienced just a 5 or 6 year period of fascism, but we have experienced a history in this country that's been a history of 40 million people killed, 40 million black people killed before getting to America on the slave ships between 1810 and 1850. The countless lynchings, the countless acts of wanton police brutality. What happened in North Philadelphia not long ago when a mentally retarded child was shot down by a policeman, a 15-year-old kid. That for us, this has been the course of events, and that, there are precedents and parallels to the argument. That's one whole thing. Without getting too tedious and recognizing that most of us here have some experience in the church and can probably speak to this better than I, there is, for Christians especially, for people coming out of the Judeo-Christian experience, there is a theological basis which has to do with what we call the 3 R's of repentance, reparations or restitution, and reconciliation. That what has happened has been that crimes have been committed, sins have been committed. There is a blood debt, and that, as it says, making scriptural reference, as it says in the Bible, if you've sinned against somebody, if you have a debt, that it's not enough just to mild repentance, but that the tree is known by its fruits, and that in order to make the repentance real, that there has to be some concrete act of repayment, of setting things straight, and that this is, an action that must be, a prelude to a full and complete reconciliation, man to man and brother to brother and brothers together to God. So for people coming from a theological basis, there's more than enough in the scripture to explain and justify and prescribe the justice of the whole business of reparations.
But I think I have found that too often people would like to jump to the resurrection and the victory without going through the struggle. By that I mean, in a meeting of our council of the diocese a few months ago, one of my fellow priests seemed disturbed by some of my expressions and my feelings and tried to assure me that he was my brother. And then he asked me, aren't we brothers? And I'm sure it was a painful thing for him to hear me say, no, we are not. And I feel that if he really wants to enter into a relationship of brotherhood, he must first recognize the injustice and the damage which has been done to me, and that there must be an acknowledgement of this, and something must be done to repair that damage which has been done before we can arrive at a relationship which is really called brotherhood.
Yeah, I think this is tremendous.
But can you stop it right there for a minute?
The church in America.
Okay, I hope you all heard that and really internalized and really thought about what Father Paul Washington just said. And just a little backdrop about Father Paul Washington, for those who do not know, he was the head of what was known as the Church of the Advocate here in Philadelphia. It is where the first Black Panther Party conference, if I believe it was conference, was held. It was the second location for the Black Power convention that was held in 1968, I believe. So Father Paul was no joke, and he was well respected. Years ago, there was an embargo, I believe, on Iraq, and the government, U.S. government, had forbade folks to go there. And Father Paul Washington went with a delegation. Okay, this was the type of character that this Black man, this clergyman, was. So again, to go back to what he just said, when one of his colleagues asked, "Are they not brothers?" and he's talking about a Caucasian person who is in the church that he is also a part of, or at least indirectly connected to. And his answer was no, they are not, at least not in the context of a certain type. Now be real clear about this. And he elaborated and said that in order for there to be true brotherhood, you must recognize the harm that has been placed upon me. We cannot talk about brotherhood until we can have some kind of reconciliation with those kinds of things, with that in particular. So I just want to point that out to folk, that this was a man of the cloth who was well known, well respected, and fought for justice, and preached incredibly, and upheld what he preached. But he made it very clear that there are some distinguishing factors in some of this that many don't want to deal with. And fortunately, some must and will. Okay, let's go to the next. We're going to just go a few more minutes to this, but I want you to hear these clergymen, what they're saying in 1969 about reparations and the problems that the Black clergy had at that time with the off-white clergy, because a few of them, some of them were for it, as you will hear, but a few of them were, a little reluctant, and I mean, one minister really got with them. So please continue.
Has been one where there is, in a sense, been cheap grace. We have always been concerned about confessing our sins, but we've never really pushed this whole business of doing something physical to repay or make restitution for what we've done wrong. There are very few church services today, for example, that don't include a period where you confess your weaknesses and your faults and the injustices that you have committed. But yet very few services really emphasize this need to make outward signs of your concern and your repentance. We had, in an earlier discussion, had talked about the fact that in the gathering together for the Lord's Supper, we're always inviting people to the table, those who truly repent and are sorry for their sins and all of that. But even at that rate, to come to the table isn't enough, because we haven't encouraged the going out first to make straight what we've done wrong and then return to the table with having repaired some of this physical damage, so that we haven't really made the physical signs of the inward change. And we have never really encouraged this.
I'm just wondering, Carol, brethren, it just seems to be so very obvious, so very clear, that it's very difficult for me to believe that there are really churchmen, Black or white for that matter, who would even make an attempt to refute that. And hence, it's very difficult for me to believe that there are churchmen who sincerely refute the demand for reparations on any grounds other than the grounds of their own bias and their own prejudice. Perhaps politically they may say that there's no no ground for the demand for reparations. But theologically, out of the framework of their own faith, it's just very difficult for me to understand why the Episcopalians had as much difficulty in South Bend as they had. Why the Presbyterian Church, or the Methodist Church for that matter, would go through any great pains about it, about the acceptance of the guilt.
Vaughn, I think that a part of the problem is, again, this matter of making certain assumptions which have not been true. This has been called a democracy. It has been called a land of opportunity. It has been said that anybody who's got any gumption about him can make it in this great American form of life. And therefore, the assumption is that if I have not made it, it's because I am lazy, I am inferior, or there's something wrong with me. But it's right there for you. And these persons would refuse to acknowledge that there has been oppression, that there has been a denial of opportunities, that there has been a suppression of the rights of not only the black group as one of the American minorities, but all minority groups. And I think that this is where the hang-up is, the refusal to accept the fact that this has been an oppressive kind of a situation. And if people can once say that we have oppressed, we have denied, but even beyond that, we have destroyed. Because, you know, as I think today of the whole thing about violence on the streets, people do not connect this violence with the other forms of violence and the violations of the dignity of man, the violation of our human rights, the violation of all of the other rights. And therefore, the violence on the streets is but an outward and visible expression of the other subtle forms of violence, and they're really not so subtle, but the other forms of violence which are not being talked about. And once people are willing to acknowledge this, then perhaps they can say, well, it seems as though this is a real case for reparations. We have indeed damaged, and repair must be made.
You mean to suggest then, you know, I believe that when Jim Foreman went to spoke at a Sunday morning at St. George's Episcopal Church in New York City, I think, when a question and answer period at the end, or after the morning service, the rector of that church made the observation that if his people were told that their church was operating on funds that came from prostitution and gambling and a lot of illicit kinds of relationships having to do with sex and the obvious, or that had out of the puritanical tradition, or the obvious sins, that they would be repulsed, that they would be sick unto death even. But that if they were told, as they were that morning, that their funds, their operating money was coming from the banks that invest in the apartheid system of South Africa, and that their funds are derived from the cheated banana republics of Latin America and from the backs of black folk in this country who are exploited, nobody even so much as raises an eyebrow.
And this is the violence that I'm talking
That's the
about.
kind of violence
Right.
that you're referring to. And I'm just wondering, if you gentlemen find that to be the case, and the reason for it, because it's just difficult for me, in spite of what Paul has said, that people will refuse to recognize their participation and complicity in the racist structure. But, for what reasons do they refuse to recognize it? I mean, they certainly can't be sound reasons in terms of their own theology and their own faith. I could very well accept that if we got 8 James in our churches, that's, commonly referred to the person who sits back in the pew. Well, certainly in white churches, there's somebody comparable to that. That old sister who's been there for years sitting on that one pew, and perhaps she doesn't understand because she's waiting for the prophet to give her direction. But why is it that the prophet can't accept it? Why is it the prophet is unable to see or refuses to see?
Okay,
I think
stop here for a minute.
either puts people off or is a convenient excuse is the mode, let's say, in which.
Okay, before we're going to wrap up with that last one because I want you to hear that person's response. But I'm just curious, what do you think about this, Brother Moses? I mean, have you ever seen this before?
No, I haven't seen this before. It's interesting. I wasn't able to hear it all. So I had a call come in the middle of it. So
Oh, okay. Anyway, so what do you think about what you heard thus far, or what part of it you did hear?
I think, obviously a conscious brother, a brother with consciousness. I respect all political consciousness.
And then we have also, I thank you for that addition about Moses. We also have Sister Shayla that joined us in the yard, as
Okay.
well as Miss Cece joined us in the yard as well.
Okay. I would love to know someone else's thoughts because this is very, very enlightening, and that puts it mildly, but it's also very interesting that in 1969, here you had, scholars, theological scholars, having this conversation, and then having the black ones to literally say things that today you won't even hear hardly in our communities from black clergy. And it gets deeper, family. This was part one. It gets deeper, you see. And it just shows you how we've regressed. Because these black men right here of the cloth, they were not playing. And this one section, I don't know if we're going to get to it tonight, that brother goes off. And he's clergy. But he's very articulate. He is very, shall we say, just poignant, very intelligent, and had his own congregation. So I just find it so interesting. We are allowing people today to get away with what they're getting away with and not representing the kind of spirit, the kind of tenacity, the kind of courage that we had. And you see it right here before your own eyes. This is 1969, a time when you really could get hurt real quick for saying certain things. Anyway, let's go to a couple of the folks that you mentioned. Sister Shayla, greetings to you. What are your thoughts about what you just heard? Okay.
All right, Sister Shayla, you still with us? Oh yeah, thank you for that reminder, Sister K Fighter in the chat reminded me about my fair usage. Let me go ahead and pop that up on the screen real quick. Do a little
Okay.
bit of housekeeping. Well, let me try to come to Sister Shayla, see if she's still with us, and if you want to chime in on this aspect of the conversation. We also have Miss Cece in the yard as well. All right, Sister Shayla, you still with us? Miss Cece, are you still with us?
Good evening. I did get the message late, but I am here. I just want to say good evening. I haven't spoke to y'all in a long time. Hope all is well. God bless.
All right, all right. Give thanks. Thanks for joining us. Now, did you hear the any aspects of the conversation with the?
I'm going to do my research. I am going to go back and look up the brother, but I only heard just a little bit. Like I said, I just came on.
Okay.
And just saying hello.
Okay. Okay. Yes, indeed. Much
Yeah.
appreciated.
I hope
For
all is well and God bless with everybody.
All
that's
right.
thank you, and you
Sister
as well.
Empress, good to hear your voice.
Yes, thank you. So, with that said, family, what it is that we are making certain that our people get as much information as possible in regards to these concepts, ideals of reparations, and so forth. Again, this was 1969. And so what we're hearing specifically is some things that we're hearing today as well. But again, we're moving forward to make certain that there is a level of accountability within our communities as well. Now, we know that this government, what it has done, etc. We know these things. We know what some of the corporations have done, and so forth. Sister Deidre Perlman will be joining us in the very near future with some updates on some of the projects she's been working on. But again, we know that from some of her research is how we learned about Wachovia and Etna and a few others that were literally involved directly in the slave trade, as you know, insurers and things of that nature. But again, we're not going to go into that tonight. We want to stay focused on the so-called religious institutions. Since the Pope has just said something, well, and again, we had already planned to pursue or proceed with this conversation about some of these institutions that were directly involved. Ours is a very holistic approach here. And so, again, we're very clear about who we represent and why. And by the way, we're going to be bringing some information very, very shortly as to why our position is not so much about freedmen, right? And it doesn't mean that we don't support those positions, because for us, there's some multifaceted things that need to happen. Everybody doesn't know everything. Everybody can't do everything and shouldn't. So we're smart enough to be able to support who we want to support. And it's just that simple. We have our own position. We have our own mission. And we hope that others will support that. If they don't, that's okay too, because we're going to do what we're going to do. But again, we're not stuck on terminologies completely, because number one, we know this government will flip flop on you at the drop of a hat. So to believe what they say is, you know, if you can make that happen, that's cool. But to think that just because they said it, that's what it is, we know for certain that that's not the case. But the reason why we are not going to just kind of latch on to the idea or notion of freemen completely is because in doing some of our genealogy, which we'll be bringing forward some of that at another time. But what we've learned is, number one, and I'm sure many are aware of this, some of our folks bought their freedom, okay, paid for their freedom, and family members. So they weren't freed by some proclamation or some stuff like that. So the benefits that were supposedly, you know, outlined for the freed folk based on the Emancipation Proclamation, well, that's all good, but we had to be very clear that some of our people actually fought for their freedom too. And that's a different vibration all across the board. When you fought to be free or you fled to be free, that's totally different from being free because you fought in the Union or because something was put on some paper.
Oh, yeah, let me jump in really quickly. The other thing is about those who escaped, right, and fought for their freedom in the way of, you know, being able to navigate and gain their own freedom through their own strength and will. So that's another aspect, and they wouldn't necessarily be noted, you know, as freedmen, you know, because they were looked at as, you know, kind of at that time,
fugitive.
Sure. And they wouldn't necessarily have been, you know, tallied within that aspect of, you know, they were more like the maroon.
Which is right. And that's another thing we're going to bring forward in the very near future, because what we're learning about that is very interesting. And we
also you have those, I know we were talking a little bit earlier, who, you know, also escaped and then integrated into the native tribes, so on and so forth. And of course, those Africans that were already here and developing nation tribes themselves.
Absolutely.
Right? So there's,
absolutely.
You know, different dynamics, different layers as it were, to this onion as we peel back the
Yes.
components of reparations and reparatory justice. So definitely
Absolutely.
many different angles, avenues, and strategies for you to use. And I would say, use them all. Use them all. All right. With that being said, let me just jump into a little bit of housekeeping real quick.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Out. All right, so this is fair use notice due to the social nature of this site. This channel may make use of copyrighted materials, the use of which has not always been specifically authorized by the copyright owner. All right, so with that, we are using in accordance with Title 17 USC Section 107. Okay, and this is for educational and informational purposes solely. All right. Also, I want to jump into a quick content disclaimer. All right. So the views and opinions expressed in this media or comments on this channel are those of the speakers and authors, and not necessarily reflect or represent the views and opinions held by this channel broadcaster. Due to the social nature of this broadcasting channel, videos may contain copyrighted content by another entity or person. This channel owner claims no copyright to said content. The broadcaster of this channel cannot be held accountable for the copyrighted content. The broadcaster shall be a messenger and share of information and try to verify but cannot warrant the accuracy of copyrights or completeness of the information on this channel. If you have a complaint about something or find your content is being used incorrectly, please contact the broadcaster prior to making a copyright claim. Any infringement was not done on purpose and will be rectified to all parties' satisfaction. All right, let me stop my screen share there. And thank you for your patience. All right, back over to you, Empress.
All right. So again, we feel a very different approach to to some other campaigns, and as it should be. But again, we want to begin to highlight some of the other areas that are not necessarily being looked at least not to the degree that we feel it should be. For example, when we look at the issue of who else was involved in enslavement, of course, we rarely hear folks talk about Jewish folk for whatever reason. Like, there are factors of them that had nothing to do with enslavement. So when people talk about the relationship between Black folks and Jewish people when it comes to the Holocaust and the Ma'afa, and there's some areas there that have remained a little gray, and that puts it mildly. And so we need to make certain that the fuller picture is brought into fruition. Okay. And so, there is some very interesting social political dynamics that for some reason have been avoided. And again, it behooves us to begin to examine why and by whom. Now, with that said, as we proceed with introducing here in Philadelphia what we call New Black Philly, again, as a part of repair, we're looking at there being a location designated or locations designated that would be our area based on repair, not on community development or what's the other? They have these other terms in gentrification that they use to justify what they're doing. Well, our position is no, this is going to be the first phase of approaching repair. See, nobody else can claim that. Nobody else can say that, right? And so we're very clear about who and what it is that we represent. Other folks can say or do whatever they want to do. That's fine. Different strokes for different folks. But we're very clear on we definitely are connected to the lineage position. And with that, again, even with that, though, we're saying we're inclusive in this regard. And that is rather than lumping everything into Freedmen based on, well, that's what the 14th Amendment or whatever said. I don't believe nothing these people say. And I know that, it's law and all of that. But we know without a shadow of a doubt, they create laws and they break laws. So to just keep thinking that that's all there is going on, that's why our position is based on setting a precedence. So that we don't have to even get caught up in that like that. But that's a whole nother conversation. So, okay, let's go back to the last clip that we want to share with you. And again, there's a part 2 to this, and you can just go on YouTube and find it. But This again gives you an idea of even the kinds of conversations that were literally happening 60 years ago. I mean, this is incredible. But we have to examine, how did the ball get dropped? Who dropped it and why? There needs to be accountability. We cannot allow people to get away with duking us. And this is what has happened. And for the next generations, they have to see some folks really standing up and not allowing the nonsense. So let's go to the last clip and hear this person's response.
And I have queued up the letter to the Pope from ancestor Saint Asada Shakur as well.
Okay, thank you.
Which the manifesto and Foreman and
they certainly can't be sound reasons in terms of their own theology and their own faith. I could very well accept that if we got 8 James in our churches, that's commonly referred to the person who sits back in the pew. Well, certainly in white churches there's somebody comparable to that. That old sister who's been there for years sitting on that one pew, and perhaps she doesn't understand because she's waiting for the prophet to give her direction. But why is it that the prophet can't accept it? Why is it the prophet is unable to see or refuses to see?
The thing that I think either puts people off or is a convenient excuse is the mode, let's say, in which the manifesto and Foreman and Muhammad and others make the confrontation. That is, to me, in terms of my own faith, in terms of my confidence in the Bible, the biblical picture of people like Amos coming into Bethel, into the church, into the cathedral of that little town, and pronouncing God's judgment on them for the hypocrisy of all their religious assemblies with injustice at their door, and how Amaziah, the head priest, didn't like it a bit and told Amos to get out of there. How Jesus finally, after a lot of conversation with the Pharisees and others of the religious establishment of that time, finally felt that it just wasn't getting through, and he went into the cathedral nation. I can't help but think, of a guy like Foreman coming into Riverside, or any of you going into any church, just exactly, as far as I can see, what Jesus did. And of course, he got crucified for it. That is, people don't like to have judgment pronounced on them. And to me, one of the soundest, in terms of my own theological faith, one of the soundest aspects of the whole manifesto, regardless of its rhetoric, is the fact that, to me, there's a very modern parallel of a prophetic judgment. Now, the mode of it today, as with Amos and with Jesus, offends and irritates and makes the people, of course, who are being judged furious because of the exposure, and because they can't hide anymore. They're out there. And here is this thing that begins to unfold, all the exploitation and the injustice. So I think people react in fury at the mode of the confrontation, and really then don't deal in their own minds with the justice of it.
Is it a conscious decision to react to the mode, or is that simply an excuse not to deal with the issue itself? Is it that the mode sort of sidetracks one's thinking momentarily, so that they're unconsciously they react to the blatant interruption of services? Or do they react to it consciously, knowing that the reason why they're reacting to that is because they don't want to deal with the issue?
I believe that the people in that circumstance largely react unconsciously, which I believe that it takes quite a bit of soul searching and deep review of your beliefs and what you see in front of you before you're going to be willing to even begin to accept any guilt. Particularly, I think it's true when you get to someone who may have thought that he was your brother, Paul, and is suddenly surprised to find out that you don't think he is, and can't quite understand what he did, he himself as an individual. This distinction between an individual and in a society, I think, is part of the hang-up, and it isn't, I don't believe, in most cases, a conscious effort to first accept the guilt and then say, no, I better say that they used the wrong methods. I think you develop ways of dealing in society. One of them is the method you're going to use, and one is the right, if you will, way to go about things. And I don't think that that they've consciously accepted the guilt. That's where the problem is.
Well, doesn't this say something then about our whole church tradition and experience that we have over the whole history of this country? And well, as they certainly have to rely on their heritage, but doesn't this begin to kind of point out how we've allowed people to grow? Most of these folks have spent their whole life in the church, and we have allowed them to grow old, never having to face themselves or what the Christian experience is all about.
And
they
Carol,
don't understand what the Christian witness is.
And in
yet
connection
we
with
say
that, this
church
is why
people.
I feel that there is a real mission which falls upon us. I do not say that we can any longer allow people to live these lives. And, I'm not going to accuse them of anything because people choose to accept an easy way out. People do that. But for us to continue to cooperate with this kind of a life means that it comes to that point where we must assume responsibility for the condition itself. I can no longer myself be willing to go along with it and not call attention to the fallacies, not call attention to the lies, and expose it. And then once it is exposed, we have to try to deal with it. But I think that it has to be done.
The thing I think that is, a really crucial thing to that is, and a thing that I think has gone largely unrecognized, is that the manifesto movement and the reparations movement says not only to the white community, but says to the black community, you have been a participant in a sin, to permit one's humanity to be denied without protesting, without being about the business of trying to reclaim one's humanity, one's manhood is sinful. I mean, again, the scripture says, love God and love your neighbor as yourself. And if we as blacks are not about the business of actively loving ourselves and loving our own, then clearly we're lying when we profess to love white. So I think that, there's a whole redemptive thing in the manifesto in terms of black people too. But I think the failure, just as a question, I'd have to ask, if the failure of whites to recognize that aspect of the struggle, if the posture of being, we who are accused rather than we who are with potential brothers presented with an opportunity, to work our way to some just situation together. If that posture is not indeed indicative of the racism in the church that church leaders have, allowed to remain there.
I think one of the problems is, and it comes at this point, Mohammed, is that a great many of the people in the church were put off precisely because the judgment was directed against the church. Their image of themselves, the liberal leadership of the church, their image of themselves has been that of standing with their black brothers in opposition to this corrupt and racist system out here. For years, the churches have officially been on record and working with little programs here and there, a non-segregated church and a non-segregated society, identifying the racist history of the nation and favoring compensatory action, which is another word for reparations, on behalf of the nation, programs of government service and so on. But when Mr. Foreman stands up and says, "Thou art the man," when he lays the responsibility for the situation and the guilt at the door of the institution that has an image of itself as being in the forefront of the fight to eradicate racism and its manifestations from society, then that really shook a lot of people. They said, us, but we're on the right side. We're not racist. Look what we did. After the Civil War, we went down and established schools and freedmen's bureaus, and we've had this long history of service, medical, educational. We've supported all these liberal programs and so on. And then to hear the word of judgment. And I think this is one of the healthiest things about the whole thing, is that the word of judgment has been spoken to the church in the midst of this. But that comes as not only as a profound psychological shock to be told you are guilty, but also as a profound logical shock because of the image that so many good liberal white churchmen have had, that they and their institution were in the forefront of this battle. And so I think the fundamental struggle really is to establish this connection between the church as an institution and the racist system in which it has grown up. Many people simply refuse to understand that behind the official declarations and protestations of the church has been this long history of benefit, association with, and you could even use some stronger terms of relationship between that church and the system which it has implicitly blessed and which has made it a strong and vital part of this flawed American dream that Paul has talked about. And so I think it really does come.
All right, family, you heard it for yourself. He's basically admitting and saying very clearly that there is a relationship between the government and the church or churches, which we knew, of course, but to hear, them actually say this, again, these are points of reference. These are things that you can now cite and put in your reference pieces. When we do presentations and things like that, we want to be able to give people information that they can go see for themselves. Because, sometimes people want to accuse you of making stuff up or not knowing or whatever. So we give you the things you can go to find it for yourself. And again, there's a part 2 to this. We're not going to go into that tonight. The part 2 gets real heavy, y'all, for real. So you might want to look it up. But again, this came from research. I had never heard, I'm from Philly. I had never heard anybody in Philadelphia ever talk about this like this. It was based on research. Okay. And by the way, the person that you saw, Muhammad Kenyatta, also known as Max Stanford, he's now known as Dr. Muhammad Ahmed. If you look up Max Stanford and look up RAM, you'll see something very interesting, right? In terms of his history. Because he's one of the few people who was accused by this government of plotting to unalive a so-called, I won't say civil rights person, but I'll say someone that was considered to be, I'll just say kind of Uncle Tomish. Yeah. Anyway, if you look him up, you'll see for yourself that they attempted to charge him with conspiracy to unalive a few folk who were in our communities that some felt was creating acts of treason. But see, you won't hear these kinds of things really discussed in our communities anymore. That there were people who took action, rather good, bad, or indifferent, but actually took action based on what they believed, as opposed to taking action because the enemy tells them that that's what they should do. Two different things all across the board. And by the way, Max Stanford, aka Max Stanford, also known as Muhammad Ahmed, was a student of Queen Mother Moore's. Queen Mother Moore lived in Philly for a while. And she taught several brothers in Philly, and he was one of them. Anyway, I digressed. Okay, let's go to you all and get some comments and thoughts on some of what you just heard. And again, I encourage you to check some more of this out because there's a couple of European descendant folk who kind of really indicate that they're not really for this. They're not, they don't agree with a couple of their colleagues, and it gets real deep. Maybe we'll play some of that at another time because you really need to see the posture of one of them. It's typical. It really is. Okay, I'm going to go to back to Brother Lumumba and let's see if we got some thoughts, some questions, some comments.
All right. So let me open the floor for any questions and comments, family. I know we have Empress Sekhmet that has joined us in the yard. I'm not sure. I see you came on and came off again. I'm not sure if you was able to how much of the video that you were able to hear dealing with the clergy and their perspective on reparations. Any questions or comments, Sister Sekhmet? Okay. I'm not sure what is going on there. All right, so does not look like it. All right, so I can come to the next clip. All right, so let me get into the letter.
Yes. Yes. And while you're queuing that up, Bill Lamouba, I just want to say, folks that are in the church now and in the mosque too, maybe need to ask, what is the position? Because you heard these clergy people give their positions. So wouldn't it be not only intelligent, but a moral kind of thing that folks ask, what is their position on the church being involved in slavery? Anyway, we'll come back to that. Let's hear the clip.
My name is Asada Shakur, and I was born and raised in the United States. I am a descendant of Africans who were kidnapped and brought to the Americas as slaves. I spent my early childhood in the racist, segregated South. I later moved to the northern part of the country, where I realized that Black people were equally victimized by racism and oppression. I grew up and became a political activist, participating in student struggles, the anti-war movement, and most of all, in the movement for the liberation of African Americans in the United States. I later joined the Black Panther Party, an organization that was targeted by the COINTELPRO program, a program that was set up by the Federal Bureau of Investigation to eliminate all political opposition to the U.S. government's policies, to destroy the Black liberation movement in the United States, to discredit activists, and to eliminate potential leaders. Under the COINTELPRO program, many political activists were harassed, imprisoned, murdered, or otherwise neutralized. As a result of being targeted by COINTELPRO, I, like many other young people, was faced with the threat of prison, underground, exile, or death. The FBI, with the help of local police agencies, systematically fed false accusations and fake news articles to the press, accusing me and other activists of crimes we did not commit. Although in my case, the charges were eventually dropped or I was eventually acquitted, the national and local police agencies created a situation where, based on their false accusations against me, any police officer could shoot me on sight. It was not until the Freedom of Information Act was passed in the mid-70s that we began to see the scope of the United States government's persecution of political activists. At this point, I think that it is important to make one thing very clear. I have advocated, and I still advocate, revolutionary changes in the structure and in the principles that govern the United States. I advocate self-determination for my people and for all oppressed people inside the United States. I advocate an end to capitalist exploitation, the abolition of racist policies, the eradication of sexism, and the elimination of political repression. If that is a crime, then I am totally guilty. To make a long story short, I was captured in New Jersey in 1973 after being shot with both arms held in the air, and then shot again from the back. I was left on the ground to die, and when I did not, I was taken to a local hospital where I was threatened, beaten, and tortured. In 1977, I was convicted in a trial that can only be described as a legal lynching. In 1979, I was able to escape with the aid of some of my fellow comrades. I saw this as a necessary step, not only because I was innocent of the charges against me, but because I knew that the racist legal system in the United States, I would receive no justice. I was also afraid that I would be murdered in prison. I later arrived in Cuba, where I am currently living in exile as a political refugee. The New Jersey State Police and other law enforcement officials say they want to see me brought to justice. But I would like to know what they mean by justice. Is torture justice? I was kept in solitary confinement for more than 2 years, mostly in men's prisons. Is that justice? My lawyers were threatened with imprisonment and imprisoned. Is that justice? I was tried by an all-white jury without even the pretext of impartiality and then sentenced to life in prison plus 33 years. Is that justice? Let me emphasize that justice for me is not the issue I am addressing here. It is justice for my people that is at stake. When my people receive justice, I am sure that I will receive.
All right, family. That was the letter, open letter from ancestor Saint Asada Shakur.
To the Pope. Yes, to the Pope. We got to make sure we're clear on that. Okay. Any more questions or comments?
All right.
All right, Brother Muma, did we want to go to one more clip from the memorial service?
Okay.
All right, family. So again, we're tying these things in. We started off tonight with giving you some insight into the memorial service that took place today at the Riverside Church. And it's interesting because, as you heard the session on Black reparations, they talked about Riverside Church as well. But I want to go back for one moment on that conversation for those who might not be familiar with James Foreman. So again, during that so-called civil rights era time period, there were a few things that came out of that were very interesting, including ultimately the Black Liberation Army. And that was mentioned, of course, today as a part of Sister Asada Shakur's memorial service. She was, in fact, a member of it, and it was the Black Liberation Army that did, in fact, liberate her. And, again, some of that was talked about today at the memorial service. And the one thing that I also found really interesting is that the story or the information about Sister Asada Shakur, it is almost like folklore to some degree. And in this day and time, when you look at it, it's almost amazing. It's almost like, it's almost hard to believe, but it did in fact happen. And we need to make sure that we continue to share that information. Some of us were blessed to be able to connect with some of the people who were in fact involved in those kinds of activities. And so, we bear witness that it wasn't a myth. It wasn't fictional stuff. Some of this stuff was all the way live, more so than what most can imagine, and why it's very disappointing today to see some of what we're seeing in our communities, the types of representation. But anyway, we'll get more into that at another time. Okay, Brother Moon, I'm going to leave it up to you to select one of the clips from today's session. Oh, and while you're doing that, let me go right back again. I digress in mentioning James Foreman. Of course, you can Google him. You will find a lot of interesting things about him, but one of the things that they were referring to in the clip was something known as the Black Manifesto. It actually did exist. 1969, I believe, is when it was issued, and they read it. He presented it at Riverside Church, by the way. Now, you have to remember, this is for that time period when, a lot was We Shall Overcome, Just Pass, and all that stuff. James Foreman was introducing that reparations at that point should be in the form of $500 million. Which is the equivalent today to, like, I think 3 billion or 2 billion. That's the estimated amount from that time period. So here we had, someone who literally created something called a Black Manifesto. And in it said very clearly that Black folks, not, that's why, again, there's a reason why some of us utilize certain words, certain terminologies from a historical perspective, not because the enemy said that, it means death or not this stuff. No, nope. And we're going to go even further back at another time to show you that the description was not something that white folks created. But I digress. We'll go into that another time. Anyway, look up Black Manifesto and you will see James Foreman. Okay, and you will see the outline. And we're going to go more into another time some of the things that they were actually able to accomplish, at least for a short period of time. But again, we allow our movements to get infiltrated, both with people who don't look like us and then some that do look like us. Okay, they're allowed to come in and create havoc, create unnecessary chaos. And then we don't respond to them appropriately, and so it just continues to happen. One of the things that Sister Sada referred to was COINTELPRO. We will, again, be doing some classes for our Black Poli-Sci 101. We'll be doing some classes on COINTELPRO, and we'll show you the link between it and now. Even the language. You think Black extremists is a new terminology because they now call it Black identity extremists? Well, guess what? Go all the way back to COINTELPRO and look at some of the terminology. Black extremists is all up and down it. So again, we know that some of these things are still happening today. And again, MWM was recently infiltrated. So we'll be bringing you that information in the very near future as well, as that person now running around calling herself Shakur. She's using the surname Shakur. Anyway, we'll get into that later. Okay, let's go to the clip.
Our chains. Education and freedom. While there, she connected with the Cuban people and found community, especially with Cubans of African descent. Always an artist. I don't know if many people know that, but she was always an artist. She finally had the opportunity to study, to teach, and to produce visual art. She wrote Asada, an autobiography, in 1987. The book is still in print, has been translated into many languages, and is taught in high schools, colleges, and universities throughout the world. Exile was extremely difficult emotionally for Assata. When asked about her integration into Cuban society, she said, quote, "It was hard. I'm your basic Black sister from the States, and I miss my people. I miss my music. I miss the culture. I miss the verbal interchange. I miss my Ebonics. The hardest pain for me is the separation from my daughter and separation from my family. Communication is hard. There's nothing in life harder than being separated from my child and my grandchildren." In 2013, the FBI put Assata on their most wanted terrorist list, and along with the state of New Jersey, issued a $2 million bounty on her head, which is, of course, illegal according to international law. Assata, her family, and all of us who love her thank the Cuban government and its people for keeping her safe, productive, and free. Safe, productive, and free, in spite of US government demands for her return and illegal attempts to capture her. As Assata said, she was a 20th century escaped slave who successfully fled and continued to thrive. Brava, dear sister. Our beautiful sister, Assata, transitioned from this plane of existence on September 25th, 2025 in Havana, Cuba. Her spirit lives on in the hearts of her beloved daughter, Kikuya Shakur, her son-in-law, Kadar Coleman, grandchildren, Diata, Che, and Savannah, and her sister, Beverly, and her family that are here today. Her legacy will be carried on by the millions of people whose lives she touched through her writing, poetry, visual art, and the example she set of lifelong commitment to the struggle for the liberation of our people. Assata's words from a 1973 message to my people are now a rallying cry for millions around the world resisting state violence and fighting for the dignity of Black lives. And I would invite you all to join us. It is our duty to fight for our freedom. Stand up, stand up. It is our duty to win. We must love each other and support each other. We must love each other and support each other. We have nothing to lose but our chains. Thank you. Ashe. More of the hard ones. Okay. To my daughter, Kikuya, I have shabby dreams for you of some vague freedom I have never known. I believe in living. I believe in the beauty of the sky and of the trees and of the grass, the human beauty between us. I hope that I can live on this planet, try to make my ancestors proud. My name is Assata Olubala Shakur. Assata means she who struggles.
Olubala means for the people, and Shakur means the thankful. It is a name that I took to carry on the name of Zaid Malik Shakur in honor of his family, and in honor of the forces of beauty and unity on this earth, which I'm very grateful for. I come from a tradition of women maroons, cimarrons, who didn't just try to escape from oppression, but were totally mind, body, spirit committed to resistance and committed to winning, committed to winning, committed to winning. Bringing life into this world. You know, I thought about my mother, my grandmother, my great-great-great-grandmothers, what they must have thought about as slaves. And, you know, we just decided that we were going to live. You know, we were going to live, we're going to struggle, and we're not going to kill our own hopes. We're not going to kill our own life. We're not going to kill our right to live. And so we just decided to be human beings, to be people. In spite of all the people that were trying to squash us down and all the forces that were trying to dehumanize us, we decided to be human.
We have to be able to heal as well as struggle, because it's not just enough to fight to tear down the old oppressive systems, but at the same time, we have to be building new ways of relating, new values that are pretty.
I just want to say, sisters, I love you. I'm so proud. Go out and multiply yourselves. Go out and get another sister. Go out and talk to anybody and everybody that you can to raise people's consciousness and to build a huge movement, not only to free political prisoners, but to free all of our people from the prison that is the United States of America.
Assata lives, y'all. We're going to speak her voice in the village forever, and she will live on forever. Mama Assata taught us that no movement can survive unless it's constantly growing and changing with the times. If it isn't growing, it's stagnant. And without the support of the people, no movement for liberation can exist, no matter how correct his analysis of the situation is. That's why political work and organizing are so important. Unless they are addressing the issues people are concerned about and contributing positive direction, they'll never support you, she taught us. The first thing the enemy tries to do is isolate revolutionaries from the masses of the people. But they will never do that, right, y'all? And there's two ways that our freedom fighters live on forever. One is through the work. When Mama Assata taught us to carry it on, she meant to do any and everything that you can do to continue to fight for the liberation of Black people. She lives forever as long as you do that. The second way that our freedom fighters live on is through their families, y'all. Through their children, through their grandchildren, their nieces and their nephews. And we have to remember that as much as they have sacrificed
and contributed to our community. Their families sacrificed so much. I want us to take a second and just give a huge round of applause for all the Panther Cubs, the BLA Cubs, the RNA Cubs, the Move Clubs on the move. We see you. We see you. And we salute you. And we love you. And thank you for sharing your mama, your baba, your grandbaba with us, with our community. And the same holds true for our dear beloved Mama Assata Shakur. Her own daughter, her children, not only continue her life, they lead this host committee. They step forward with courage and grace to open up such a vulnerable time in their lives to us. So two things. I'm up here to introduce the daughter of Mama Assata Shakur, the phenomenal, incredible poet, writer, artist, Spelman sister, Kukuya Shakur. Yeah, she can come up. And while you're still standing, the charge to us is we gotta always be there for these children, for the grandchildren. Keep standing. I want every Panther Cub, Move Cub, RNA Cub, BLA Cub to know that the village will have their backs forever. Y'all welcome Sister Kukuya. I want to thank you all for coming here tonight to be with my family. Thank you so much for bringing with you your love and your prayers and your appreciation for the beauty that my mother brought to this world during her 78 years of life. Tonight is a liberating moment for my family. After more than 50 years of isolation and 50 years of quietly counteracting the mainstream narrative amongst ourselves, this is a liberating moment that allows my family to affirm the truth of who my mother was, with people who can appreciate the anguish of what this history has been for my family, and the beauty of what my mother was fighting for. Tonight, I want those who loved my mother to find some gentle solace in this bittersweet moment. Despite the throbbing loss, and despite the silence left in the absence, I hope there is some comfort in this moment of triumph, in this moment that gives proof to the notion that every spawned breath of freedom cannot be quelled. Despite an overwhelming display of vitriol, there is the burgeoning resistance that always rises from the muddied wake of oppression. The fact that my mother did not die in chains, in a space unworthy of her humanity, not cowering or dispirited or uncommitted or acquiescent, is a testament to the fortitude of the human spirit. And this indeed is triumphant. There is triumph today after all of the illegal tactics to suppress a movement, after the brutality of incarceration in the most inhumane conditions, after the uncertainty of a sprouted dawn. There is triumph in that my mother's revolutionary spirit could not be broken. And neither could the spirit of her comrades, and neither could the spirit of the people who recognized her virtue and stood with her in solidarity. You are here today as evidence that the river spirit of the people cannot be dredged and flows onward from our ancestors who have died, fulfilling their duty to sway us closer to freedom. I want to give thanks to all of the people who kept my mother free. A modern day underground railroad of people that cherished her and ensured her safety. Words cannot express my infinite gratitude for your selfless act of love and for your sacrifice. And although we are gathered here tonight in the wake of my mother's passing, I want to assure you that this story is not etched in a lifeless past. It is alive in all of you who are present here today, and all of you who loved my mother and still love her, and all of you that protected her physical body and now continue to protect her spirit and her legacy. It is alive in those of you who have studied her words and will continue her tradition of radical struggle, of audacity to transform this world, to dismantle the caustic framework that erodes the righteousness of the human soul, and to reimagine a society that actually values all human life. As glaringly basic as that sounds, yet so elusive in this capitalist, imperialist country that we live in, a society structured to foster the well-being of each sacred human soul. That is what my mother fought to create. And so we, as oppressed people, cannot be told who our heroes and our sheroes are. We cannot be silenced by those who refuse to give voice to our pain, or by those who are complicit in the devaluation of our lives. We cannot be silenced by those who believe that the greatness of America should be built on our heartache, on our removal, on our containment, or on our exploitation. Our heroes can only be those who resist and strive for a society rooted in inclusion and justice. And so, yes, my mother is my most influential hero. My mother understood that she was born into resistance, that my family had always been under attack in this country, that Black and Indigenous peoples had always been tyrannized and dehumanized in this country, that each breath was a fight for a dignified life, that each footstep forward was a demand to be freed from the shackles of racial terror, of state-sanctioned brutality, and of inflicted suffering. And so she willingly accepted the inevitability of struggle, the seething pain of struggle, the separation from loved ones, the grief, but most importantly, she accepted the commitment to winning this struggle. For all of you who are here today, who might not have met my mother, I want you to know that my mother loved humanity, the velvet bloom of this earth, the sanctity of nature and of all human life. And so she loved the burgeoning possibility of struggle, of growing a kind world, of tilling the dream of liberation for Black people and all subjugated peoples. And so she loved to be principled, committed until death, as a comrade, as a sister, as a friend, as a freedom fighter. And she loved being a woman revolutionary, steeped in the strength that gave me life, barreling through the stony walls of a United States prison. She loved being my mom. So, Mommy, on this day, I hope that you are coiled in the rapture of love that buckles the walls of this room. And I hope that you are sun-swept and dripping into the fold of loving arms. I want to thank you, Mommy, for being my mother, for loving me in a tradition rooted in liberation, for teaching me to question the status quo of human cruelty, to question who we are in the shallow glint of the mirror if we are not truly human, to question who we are if we are not bound by the storied breath between us, by the ordinary lives lived in the gut, hungry for more than just a fraction of human decency. Who are we if we are not the blooms of our martyrs, the keepers of their dreams unbodied, the bastions of our goldenrod tomorrows, flowering for our children and our children's children? Who are we if we never realize that we have nothing to lose but the weighty degradation of our chains? Thank you.
Okay, Brother Lumumba, let's stop there. Yep, there we go. Let's stop here. All right. All right, family. So that, of course, was Sister Asada's daughter. And, as you can tell, she's quite, you can, feel the spirit of her mother and of herself as well. At any rate, we're going to get ready to close this session out. And again, it's been a very, very powerful day, very interesting day to hear what we heard today, or to see what we saw today in the memorial service for Sister Assata Shakur. We are pleased to announce that next month, no, not next month, which is not quite June yet, but in July, we will be holding our first session for our new wing of MWM, National Black Women's Defense League. And it is named for Sister Assata. We call it Assata Sisters. And it is a new wing, a new component, new unit of our National Black Women's Defense League. And it is geared specifically to warrior-like sisters, sister soldiers, and things of that nature. We'll be sending out some information on it very soon. Again, next year we will be distributing Sister Assata's message to us for the Million Women March in 1997. We were honored to have her to do that. We are the only Black women's organization that we know of that is recognized on a national, international level that she did that for. And so next year for our 30-year anniversary, we will make that message available. We also want to remind you that tomorrow, Butu session, 7 o'clock. And tomorrow we're going to be, giving you more information about some of the next steps for the We Charge Genocide 21, the National Black Human Rights Project. And as I mentioned earlier, the call to Black elected officials nationwide, we want to know who they are that are supporting reparations. We want to know who they are. We want to know what their plans of action is, or what they are supporting. We want to literally see this in writing. We're going to have some conversations about it, but we now are ready to get down to the nitty gritty. And also, Black clergy, same thing. We need to know without a shadow of a doubt who is for us obtaining self-determination, healing, and repair all across the board. And again, we're gearing up for August and also for later this year. Remember, later this year will mark the 75th year anniversary of Paul Robeson taking the petition to the United Nations. And sisters, we hope that you will be joining us in September. We've now put out the call to the universal Black woman in recognition of the call to the Negro women that was placed 75 years ago for women to come to Washington, D.C. Well, we're continuing the legacy, the history, but also taking it now to the next level. And with that, introducing our MWM Universal Movement think tanks, task forces, things of that nature. There's going to be several caucuses that will focus on Black women and reparations, or Black women and repair. What are we talking about as Black women? So that will be one of many sessions. But we also want to examine leadership, for lack of a better word. Who is representing Black women on a national, international level? In what way, etc. We need to be real clear about that now. And where there's a gap or a void, we need to make sure we fill it in. So this is all coming from September 29th through October the 3rd. And then on October the 3rd, there will be a rally, a reparations rally in DC, again in commemoration of the 1951 gathering of Black women in Washington, D.C. We're continuing the legacy and taking it forward. With that said, I'm going to turn it back over to Brother Lumumba, give you some insight information on tomorrow. Again, Ubuntu kickoff is coming August 23rd in New York. This is a 3-year project for our artists in particular. And again, we're looking for artists with integrity, with a sense of responsibility, with an idea of justice, etc. This will be a great opportunity for not only the marketing and capability to advance and provide exposure, but also camaraderie and the capability to create our own music, our own distribution, our own artivist. And it is our intention to do national and international tours. So again, it will highlight and feature talent and skills and things in both performing as well as visual artistry. Again, we know specifically how to reach our people. The conversations are good, but we know there's always other means of making certain that the message is not only in the music, but in our emotions and in our movements. So I'm going to turn it back over to Brother Lumumba and get you some information on tomorrow to remind you at 7 o'clock. And then we're out.
All right. Yep. And in closing, I want to play like another like 5 to 8 minutes of the program. And I just want to make sure I highlight Baba Mumia Abu Jamal, political prisoner of 4 decades here from the city of Philadelphia, who gave a excerpt that was played at the memorial service, as well as closing out with the performance of our sister Mumu Fresh. All right, but for more information for tomorrow, that is the Ubuntu Justice, Reparatory Justice coordinating and organizing meeting. That's tomorrow at 7 Eastern Standard Time, and that's going to be on Zoom and also as well as Facebook Live. All right, so you can go to the Facebook Live profile under the Lumumba Uncaged You can also email powerman2282@gmail.com. Again, that's powerman2282@gmail.com. You can also email national mwm@aol.com. Again, that's national mwm@aol.com. You can also text 267-636-3802. Again, that number is 267 636-3802 for additional information, insights, um, to get membership, and any additional information that you want to obtain. All right. With that being said, let me come to this clip and get ready to close out for this evening. All right. Thank you for joining us once again. And give thanks to the ancestors and the elders. Give thanks to our OG organizations. Triple salute to ancestor Saint Asada Shakur, along with the efforts of the veteran Black Panther Party movement, the BLA, the Black Liberation Army, and all those organizations who have led us to the point of today where we can continue to push forward and forth, to liberation, all right, and freedom and justice for our people. And of course, that in tandem with the reparations movement, the late, great ancestor Saint Queen Mother Moore, etc. All right, let me get into this last clip before we get ready to close out for this evening.
Salute to Comrade Sister Assata. The name Assata Shakur has been, for years, already become a legendary name. It represents resistance, Black freedom struggle, and indeed revolutionary solidarity, especially with a brave and principled government and people of Cuba. I say legendary because at least dozens of rappers have named her, and we shouldn't forget her best-selling book, Assata, a brilliant autobiography. The book tells of her youth in the South and coming to the North and learning about the Black radical revolutionary movements. As she writes, this book is about a Black woman's awakening, and therefore her story awakens others, especially young people. She joined the Black Panther Party and later the Black Liberation Army and the Black freedom struggle generally. Indeed, her life became a symbol of these struggles. In May 1973, she and two comrades, Zaid Malik Shakur and Sundiata Akoli, were stopped in a car on I-95 in New Jersey, and a shootout ensued. Two men, Zaid Malik Shakur and a New Jersey state trooper, were killed. Guess who got charged with both their murders? Assata was. Her attorney, who was incidentally her aunt, Evelyn Williams, won at least 5 acquittals at trial. When she was finally convicted, it took an all-white jury in Middlesex County, New Jersey, which resulted in a sentence of life plus 65 years, despite her innocence. In November 1979, the BLA and other comrades entered the prison where Assata was being held and carried her to freedom. She spent her lifetime in Cuba, which granted her refuge and a home of political asylum. Living in freedom in Cuba for over half a century meant a life of teaching English and supporting the society that boldly supported her. But it also meant exile, living apart from her beloved daughter, Kikuya, who was literally a child of the BLA. Her book, Asada, has traveled to many lands and has been translated to many languages. But her message, made possible by the Cuban state, was of the value of revolutionary solidarity and also the value of resistance to the U.S. empire. Her lasting message: to love each other, to support each other, and to struggle until freedom comes. Assata Shakur, member of the Black Panther Party, soldier of the Black Liberation Army, mother, grandmother, and comrade sister, returned to the loving embrace of the ancestors on September 25th, 2025. With love, not fear. This is Mumia Abu Jamal.
What's the call? What's the call? What's the call? Free them all, fam. It is my great pleasure, honor. I ain't gonna fangirl, but I'm a fangirl. We're gonna bring out a child of the revolution, a sound healer, Maimuna Youssef, Mumu Fresh. Give it up for y'all for Mumu Fresh. Yahweh, 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 Pray for me. Pray for me. Oh, my mother prayed for me. When you bow the altar, please don't forget to pray for me. Ooh, soon I will be done with the troubles of this world. Troubles of this world, troubles of this now will be done with the trouble of this world. I'm going home to live with God. Peace will come, don't despair. Be aware. Peace will come, don't despair. Cling to truth. Peace will come. In the spirit of our honorable ancestors. Peace will come, don't despair. Cling to truth, be aware. Peace will come, don't despair. Cling to truth, be aware. Peace will come, don't despair. Cling to truth, be aware. Peace will come, don't despair. Cling to truth, be aware. Peace will come, don't despair. Cling to truth, be aware. Peace will come. Peace will come, don't despair. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Peace will the spirit of Asada.
All right, with that being said, we get ready to close out. Long live the spirit of our ancestors. Long live the spirit of Saint Asada Shakur. Long live the spirit of our revolutionary movements and activists, activism, advocates. Free them all. Free the land. All power to the people. Peace, power, and prosperity, family. Until next time.